Hey, coming up tomorrow night, or if you're listening to this on Thursday, April 23rd, it's tonight, 7 o'clock at the Nyack Auditorium. They always have wonderful shows there, and we've got a great one. Not a good one, a great one. Maybe you've heard the promos already. They're called Electric Avenue. It's an 80s MTV experience, and who can't forget the MTV? You know what? They should have never got into reality TV. They should have kept playing those videos. That's what I'm
100%.
saying.
You're not wrong.
I got
You're
the
not
lead
wrong.
singer here of Electric Avenue here. Kevin Spencer is joining us here. Kevin, thanks for joining us. And I hope you're excited about coming to Mason City, Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely, Harry. Thanks for making time to talk. Yeah, we are. We've never been to Mason City, and it's going to be. It's always a great show. I'll lead with that. Like, this band is always about giving 110% of every single faculty that we have available to us that day. We, as a band, we don't phone it in. There's not one person in our unit that has anything other than a drive to just really knock people out. You just got to be in the moment, because life is for living, and we're all middle-aged guys that are kind of doing the job, but we've all lost a lot of friends, and we've all lost family members and such over time. And there's a constant reminder to truly go out and see your heroes. And so many of the people that were performing in the set, being George Michael and Prince and David Bowie and the rest of our heroes, about half of the set list is comprised of the greats that are no longer with us. And they wrote the songbook that we all grew up on. So it is certainly an experiential concert, more so than most bands are capable of.
Well, we're a classic rock station.
Yeah.
And I even put Prince into the lineup yesterday when we were in memoriam 10 years ago, the 21st of April.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. 57 years old, and he left us.
Isn't that crazy?
I even had a personal story. I actually met him before he was nationally popular. I met him when he was locally popular, and told him right to his face, "Hey, you're pretty good."
You're gonna have a career, kid.
I was going to broadcasting school then. It was fun.
It's interesting. That night it's still on my calendar as well, for the 21st. And I got to say that the 19th of the month is still on my calendar as well, because I got a phone call on the 19th that year from one of my old bandmates, Steve. And he called me up and he said, "Hey man, I got permission from the boss for you to come to the show and sit side stage," which he never allows.
Wow.
And my buddy, my bandmate, Steve, was Prince's right-hand man for the last 10 years of his life, and his personal tech, and traveled with him in the studio and live. And he called me and said, "Yeah, the boss wants to meet you." And he is excited at that, because I've told him a bunch of different stuff. And believe it or not, Prince actually liked the musical Rent, which I starred in 25 years ago. And I played Roger. And so he knew the role, he knew the job, and he was like, "I'd love to meet your friend. Yeah, bring him out." Yeah. So I was supposed to go and sit side stage and watch Prince play his concert with him solo piano here in Atlanta at the Fox Theater. And at the time I needed the money. So I said, "Man, as much as I really want to do that, I got to say no, because Electric Avenue's got a gig and I got to take the work." And he goes, "Oh man, I'm really sorry to hear that. Any way you can get a sub?" And I was like, "I just can't, man. I really can't." Wow. And he's like, "I understand. And can you even guess at how much I kicked myself for not going and doing that? Because knowing now it was his final concert of all time."
Yeah, that would have been, right. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's still bugging you, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, it weighs on me.
It will.
And obviously Steve's no longer obviously working for Prince. He worked for Diana Krall and Sarah McLachlan and a bunch of the greats before Prince. And then now he works, he's the right hand of Billie Eilish for the last 10 years. But man, I got to say that Prince moment really sticks with me. It's a heavy one. You got to
get up to Paisley Park, maybe, since you're in the Midwest. Maybe even get up there. And I don't know if they started their tours yet or not, but that's a hell of a museum. You really get close, and you get the feeling of, because he had like a recording device in every single room.
Oh yeah. We've actually been invited out by the people who run the estate. Yeah. We just haven't had a chance to be able to make it work in our time schedule, because that's the downside about touring, Harry, is it's pretty exhausting.
I bet.
But anyway, yeah, man, we're really excited to come to see you guys in Mason.
Electric Avenue. If people didn't know, of course, the famous song was was sung by Eddie Grant.
Yeah.
Do you open with that?
You know what's interesting is we roll through about 190 songs.
Oh, wow.
So we try to make sure that each set list is different than the next,
Okay.
because there are some people that come and see us in multiple cities.
Right.
So I would say that maybe 20% of our concerts throughout the year feature the song Electric Avenue and 80% don't, because there's just too many great songs to get to. It's a war of attrition. Do you play Tears for Fears? Do you play OMD? Do you play Depeche Mode? Do you play Elvis Costello? Do you play The Cars? Do you play Gary Newman? Do you play Rick Springfield? Do you play Prince? Do you play David Bowie? Do you play George Michael? There's so many songs and so many great artists to get to that, when you've only got, 24 songs or so per night, you got to make them count and you got to change it up.
Yeah, but isn't it all about what you guys do best? Because, I mean, this is my little thing about cover bands. We've heard about cover bands for a long time. But
Yes.
then I think I want to say about 10 years ago, maybe even earlier than that, I don't know. But they shifted to, we got to sound exactly like the band, as best as you possibly can, where people can close their eyes if we're doing a Cars song and go, oh my gosh, that really sounds like the Cars. You know what I mean? I think there's a difference in cover bands today.
So I will say that there are always going to be cover bands that are bar bands, right?
Right.
And that is one mode of working. That's not what Electric Avenue is. This is not about ego. We have massive egos that are absolutely applied to all the details, the notes, and the music. And that's it. We check the rest of it at the door. So it's like having 5 guys on stage and a sound man that bring out your pit bull to do the job, and you put the pit bull right back in the cage, and it's all just fun and laughter and enjoying life, right? Because that's what we're there for, is to enjoy life. So when you say about the details and getting it right, we attack it from the side of really trying to do that job. And when you speak about where it changed about 10 years ago, I would argue that it really did start to shift about 10 years ago, but we were one of the few bands, there's about 3 or 4 of us in the country that are of that level. I'm not even going to mention the other bands. They're all friends of ours. But the point is that there are some bands that really push the quality line up. And the reason is because the music industry fell apart, Harry, about 24 years ago, 25 years ago. It started in 99. Most of the guys in our band had other careers. I was playing stadiums and working in original bands. My first U.S. tour was Lilith Fair with Sarah McLachlan, Paula Cole, Tracy Chapman, Jewel. I was the youngest player on the tour. And then my band got offered a deal with Clive Davis. It was all coming together in 99. It fell apart at the start of 2000. And we all just puttered around for about 9 months going, what's going on with the music industry? What's this thing called Napster? What are you talking about? Record sales are down by 70% in 1 year. What are you talking about? People are stealing music instead. We didn't understand it. And that's when I got hip to an offer to go to New York City and star in the musical Rent to play Roger Davis. So I did that for 650 shows, thinking the music industry would stabilize again. After that, I ended up working with Queen on their rock opera, We Will Rock You, and kind of workshopping that to get together for them. I turned the job down and walked away from it and took a job with my friend Daniel Lemois, who is mainly known as the producer who did the 5 big U2 albums, the 2 biggest Peter Gabriel, 2 biggest Bob Dylan, 2 biggest Emmylou Harris, 2 biggest Neil Young. So he's who Rolling Stone called the most important music producer of our generation. He created that entire sound that is U2, now Coldplay, and everybody else that's chased it. He and Brian Eno created that sound, and Dan really ran with it. So certainly a celebrated guy. And I watched him, as we're working on mega records and touring, I was watching things fall apart from his perspective as one of the top 10 producers in U.S. history and world history, for that matter, and watching where his numbers went for the offers to what he was working for these days. My reason for mentioning that is to say that I watched it from the inside of the music industry falling apart. So when I landed in Atlanta and got married to a beautiful girl here, I stayed here because of her. And I started putting my life back together locally. And some of my friends that were working with other major artists were out of work. And that's how Electric Avenue was born. We were all guys that were in this level. And then we were coming down 3 or 4 notches because that's the work that's available.
Sure.
Because when the music industry fell apart, our friends that were on major retainer with Sheryl Crow, came off retainer, and then next thing you know, they're working for her and other people, but they're not on retainer anymore. And the whole industry came about 3 or 4 pegs down, and the money went from people making $5 million a year as a star to making $1 million a year as a star. And the working class people went from $100,000 a year down to 50 grand a year. And so we entered middle class, lower class conversations of finance. And so that's where these were job protections. And so the reason I voiced all of that is to say that the guys in our band are absolute detail mongers, and they've played on tons of records. Geez, our guitar player Shannon played on Boys to Men 2, the last 10 times diamond selling album in US history. Wow. Not even Adele sold that much. Wow. So, you know, and he can't get arrested, and yet he's the guitar player on a couple of those tracks. And so, the resume, the resume of the guys I get to stand on stage beside every night is just amazing.
How many guys in the band? How many people in the band?
Five on stage and one out front doing sound. We don't delineate between our sound man and the band. He's an equal member of the band, because when you're dealing with the 80s, you got to have every single reverb, every single delay time timed. Everything's got to be in place to sound like the record. And we certainly are the benchmark for 80s in the country. We didn't set out to be that, but we did set out to do that quality-wise. And I think the fact that we've been able to do it quality-wise night after night is what's allowed us to be known nationally as that.
Which artist was the easiest to learn, and which one was the toughest to learn?
Great question. I am going to say that Prince is difficult because, you know, as the story goes, when Eric Clapton was interviewed by Rolling Stone and they said, "Hey, Prince," or Eric Clapton, you know, live on his interview, "What's it like to be known as the greatest guitar player in the world?" And he said, "I don't know. You'd have to ask Prince." And so with that in mind, I think that is certainly, you know, when there's 5 white guys and we're trying to get one of the greatest musicians of all time, who is soul-based and funk-based, we all are very versed in blues and jazz and funk. So it is believable, but I think that the detail work that Prince did is very, very spot on. I think so. That's very much one of them. I think a band like Tears for Fears is so highly underrated for their quality. People think that they just basically have pop songs until you lift up the lid of the car and you go, "Oh my God, this is like one of the greatest clockmakers that has ever lived, that built a song out of clock parts." And everything has to be in place or it doesn't work. I think a song that was very difficult for us to get right is "In Your Eyes" by Peter Gabriel.
Okay, sure.
We don't play it every night. We typically only play it when we've got the girls out with us because we need the extra vocals. But we couldn't get that one right for a few years, and I actually had to call in the Lifeline because my old boss Dan, I mentioned earlier, he produced that record for Peter, and so I had to ask him, you know, what it was that kind of made that thing tick. And some of the nuances were because some of the equipment was actually failing, if you can believe it. The tape machines that were supposed to be in sync were falling out of sync with each other, and it created this neat complementary compound rhythm. And once we started to attack it like that, we were able to get it to land. So I think Peter Gabriel is one of those people that is very highly underrated and therefore difficult. I think the easier stuff for us, God, I don't know that anything's easy, but I would say that, you know, in a sweet spot of straight down the middle for us might be, you know, something like Phil Collins' "Against All Odds."
Okay.
It's not a hard song. It's a pretty easy song to be able to do if you can sing it and play it. It's an easier song to do because there's not a lot of elements in it, and you're not dealing with a ton of production. It's bass, drums, keyboards, and vocal. But the mute math of getting that song right is when there's only a few elements, do you have the heart to get it done? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So anybody can play that song.
Sure.
But can you make people feel that song?
Right. That's what it's all about. Just like the artist did.
100%.
The artist did the same thing to us.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So that's where we're coming from. You know, I will say that I'm pretty sure that on the Phil Collins side, I'm pretty sure that "In the Air Tonight" is in the set list for tomorrow night.
Okay.
And a song like Isn't it though? Yeah.
Do-do.
Yeah. But you don't see bands playing that very often because
Oh.
it's too difficult for them to get each small piece. Every
Mhm.
single 8-bar phrase has its own idiosyncratic movement and
Right.
feel, and you have to build it right and ebb and flow and move things around. So yeah,
This is
man,
a
there's not a
celebration of artist and song both. I think for your set list, I guess my next question would be because it is about both. It's about the artist and it's about the song and the songs. Do you do more than one from an artist, or is it just one song per artist in the '80s and just kind of keep it
typically
all? Because there's so much. There's so
that's
much
it.
you guys
Yeah.
can do.
That's it. Yeah. Typically we try to do one song only by each artist.
Okay.
I do know that sometimes we'll sneak in a second song by Prince
Yeah.
because he's too important to the conversation of that era. Um,
You
you
got to
know, there's
end with "Let's Go Crazy." Come on.
well,
Love that song, man. Love
I'm not
that
going to
song.
give away any secrets, but you're not
Okay.
far off.
Okay.
I'm looking at the set list for tomorrow night, and you're at least in the ballpark, my friend.
That is
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, again, a song like that, right? Like you would think that a song like that is pretty straightforward. You know, it's a straight up rock song. You're not dealing with chordal movement that is completely out of line with with normality of the way that songs would move in a progression. It's not like he's pulling on higher jazz or anything,
Right.
but man, is that song ever? It's a fist fight. It's
Mhm.
it, right? It's a fist
Mhm.
fight. So you mentioned a minute ago that our shows and what we're doing here is certainly about the artists and the song, but there's an element that is so much more important to me as a front man and as the manager of the band and for our product, for what we do as a team of six. And that is one word, my friend, and it is life.
Mm.
Because what we are doing is we are coming out as a band of six to help people celebrate a time when life was easier, when you could go home from school and you could put on a record and your
Yeah.
headphones
Yeah.
and you could disappear for 90 minutes or an hour or whatever before your parents got home, or jump up and down in your bed and lionize the details and go to another world that just felt otherly. And you know, every once in a while, we'll pull out something by Pink Floyd and throw it in the set, you know, from the wall or something that people are not expecting. And the
Sure.
look on people's faces, they're just like, oh my
Oh, yeah.
God, how did I get here? And so when I say that we're celebrating life,
Yeah.
the we've studied this on purpose. Sense memory is really important in getting it right and selling what we're selling to the people. And that's what separates us from all the rest of the bands out there, is sense memory. And we know how to access it because sense memory is stored through your temporal lobe, and you can only access it through sound or through smell. And we can't get the smell of grandma's couch that you had when you were a kid pumped into the room
Yeah.
because everybody's grandma's couch smelled differently. But what we can do is we can get every single detail right. So we actually, our disagreements in rehearsal times are not about anything else other than every single detail that made that record turn over. We can't use that keyboard sound because that was on the Rev 2 and it didn't come out until 1984. This album was released in 84, but it was recorded in early 83, which means it was the Rev 2 from that Prophet 5 or whatever
Sure.
that was, that keyboard.
Sure.
So it's got to have that gnarly distortion built in or it's not the right sound.
Right.
Most bands that where this started, Electric Avenue, was Shannon, the guitar player, and I started this band together. And we piloted all this stuff together to figure it out. And it really came down to one thing, and that was we saw an 80s band that people were loving in a venue. And we looked at each other and we were like, that's not the right chord. That's not the right harmony. That's certainly not the right sound. These
Uh-oh.
guys are not doing it right. But everybody here is having a great time.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what would happen if the band actually got it right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we sat down with a bottle of whiskey the next day
Yeah.
on a Sunday afternoon, and we're both sober now. But
Yeah.
back then, we sat down with a bottle of whiskey, had a couple shots, and we wrote out a set list, of which I still have said set list, where we dreamed up and said, well, what would it be if we were to do it? with our detailed minds and all of
Sure.
our experience of working on and playing on all these hit records over these years, you know, because Eric, the founding member of the band, he's not playing keyboards with us anymore because he's still out with Lionel Richie. And before that, he's with Paul Simon. And before that, he's with Boston. And, you know, so we've all had careers with lots of musicians and stuff, and we've seen a lot. So we play these songs from the informed position of knowing how these records were made, what made them tick, and actually being friends with some of the artists that we're actually playing. We've been very lucky that through our travels, we get into Los Angeles, and all of a sudden we've got Bobby Kimball from Toto showing up and saying, "Can I sing Africa and Rosanna with you?"
Oh
And
my
we're
God.
like, "Yeah, you can."
Yeah. Duh.
You know,
No brainer.
our friend Wayne from Little River Band has got up and played.
Yeah.
We've done some stuff from the 70s with them. We did Reminiscing, and we did Lady together. And then we've had our friend Richard Page had a band called Mr. Mister. And he's also the lead singer, bass player for Ringo Starr's band for the last 20 years. He came out and did some work with us, and he was very straight up about it. He said, "Hey, look, I'll play with you guys, but like, we're not going to do the big ones. We're not going to do Kyrie and stuff like that." And I was like, "Why, man? That's a great song." And he goes, "Well, it's not
Wings.
that."
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, "It's just that, look, even when I'm in Ringo's band, you know, that's got the guitar player and keyboard player from Toto, and it's got some killers in the band, and we barely get it right." So, you know, the drummer from Mr. Mister he's been in King Crimson for the last 35 years. So he's a super high level player, Pat Masalato, right? And so his work, and then the other guitar player and the keyboard player, and they're all just monster players. And he said, the detail work that we've got on those records, you're not going to get it. And I said, "Can I send you a recording of us?" And he said, "Sure." And he called me back 10 minutes later, and he was like, "How did you do that?" And I sent him, it's a live video of us playing the song. It's on our YouTube channel. Oh. And I was like, "Buddy, that's the second time we ever played that song. We've gotten better at it." Wow. And he was like, "Yeah, let's have fun. Oh my God, this is gonna be great." Wow. So he's come out now to 2 different shows and sat in with us. And it's a real treat for us to have this monolith of a human in his music, but also such a beautifully kind, wonderful human to deal with and to spend time with. That's awesome. And he's live on a microphone in front of 1,500 people, sold out at a show, saying, "Hey, everybody, I got to be honest that you might think that this is a real treat for Electric Avenue to play with me, but I got to tell you, it's a real treat for me to play with Electric Avenue. These guys are playing our songs as good as we ever did." That was a real treat for us recently. So what a blessing.
That's
and we also had
ever right there. Yeah.
Oh, it hits home, brother. Yep. But we also had our friend Mike Mills from REM come out and say something very similar on the microphone at another show. Like, these are our heroes that we get to work with, and they're complimenting us and saying, "You guys are playing our music as good or better than we ever did live." So that's a real beautiful thing. And it's not about ego, because we don't derive anything from this other than a paycheck. And part of that paycheck is the smiles and the energy coming back from the audience, Harry. So when we do our job right, we hear it.
Right.
We feel it, if that makes any sense.
Of course it does. Of course it does. They're coming to Nyack Auditorium. They're going to be here Thursday night, 7:00. Is it, is there an intermission, I believe? Is it
there
2
is,
parts?
Yep. Two 45-minute sets, sir.
Okay. It's going to be at the Nyack Auditorium. Great place. You'll love the venue, and the people are awesome around here. We love the 80s. And I got to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
I can define my answer for this, but what year in the 80s? So I started radio in 1980.
Yep.
Okay. 46 years now. And I was 16. Yeah, 16 or 17, something like that. And I can tell you exactly what I thought was the best year in the 80s for music. So let me ask you first, and then I'll tell you mine. What year?
I'm going to say it was 84.
Yes! Let's just go through it all, shall we? We're second year of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yep.
It was 1984 from Van Halen.
Hands down.
Purple Rain from Prince. It was Born in the USA from Bruce Springsteen. That album. Right. I'm just giving album names now.
Yeah.
Footloose.
Yeah.
was out, and even a little Cyndi Lauper in there. with your
100%.
little girls just wanting to have fun. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm just touching upon some of the greatest stuff. But 1984 was, yeah, that was my pick as the best year in music ever.
Hands down, hands
Yeah.
down. I think 84 and 85, that 2 year period was probably the pinnacle of pop music in history.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
Yeah.
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 And now, today it's kind of interesting. I'll throw this in. Classic rock radio today plays some of those that would be considered pop back in
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yep.
Like Simple Minds.
Yep.
Don't You Forget About Me. That's a
Yeah.
rock song, man. A lot of these
100%.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I was just going to say the way that we play them, we lean in. We lean into these songs. So
Yep.
even though they're a rock song on the record, we're giving it that extra 10%. We're putting the hair on it a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And that's where the life part comes in, because not everybody in the audience is going to have had a good day.
Right.
There are going to be some people in the audience every single night that have had a pretty craptastic day.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are times when I have to walk on stage and I've had a really horrible day. And my job is to use that and filter that in,
Sure.
because it's honest, it's real, and the audience deserves that.
Mhm.
The reality is this is a live ebb and flow piece of art that we're providing. It's not
Right.
just a quote unquote cover band.
Mhm.
Cover bands are a dime a dozen. Everybody knows someone in a cover band. I'm not saying this to be a jerk,
Mhm.
but even if I left Electric Avenue and set those guys on their own with a different lead singer, and it was just, I wasn't in the band anymore, I would say this is pound for pound one of the best shows you're going to see in the country.
Hands down. I love it. I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah,
It's
man.
Thursday night, 7:00. And get your tickets, by the way. You can go to the website, nyac.edu, and get your tickets right there online, or you can even purchase them at the door if they are available. We've really hyped this show up for you, gave away some tickets, and people are excited. So
So
Kevin,
Harry, you're coming to the show?
oh, of course, I'm going to be there.
Oh, right
I
on,
know.
man.
I don't get married till Saturday, so I got some time here.
I got you, man. I got you. Well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Electric Avenue, the 80s MTV experience that's happening at Nyack, and it's happening Thursday night, 7:00. So you have yourself a great trip here. Keep it safe, okay?
Will do. Talk to you soon, my friend.
You bet.